Here, you want to do this? Yeah, yeah.
Just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit,
Yes.
just a little bit. Real respect. Just a little bit, 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 just a little bit.
And now stay tuned for another original Studio B production right here on the Voice17104.com.
Hello and welcome. I'd like to invite you to just enjoy the experience that we're about to encounter. I'd like to introduce to you a man of a very humble beginning, a man that was able to overcome the horrific misclassification of special education. A caring man, a man that will encourage you because he's been there and done that. And I'd like to encourage you to keep an open mind and be empowered to change your life. I'd like to present to you a man of men, Richard Utley. Richard Utley.
Welcome to Did You Know? Podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of the African American community through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there is another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars in the galaxy of Black America. It is time to tell our story.
Well, welcome to another Did You Know podcast. I'm going to change it up today and say I'm going to call it Did You Know broadcast? Do you know or do you want to know? And the reason I want to bring that up today is that I'm very, very troubled and disturbed. And so as I was driving over here today, I was wondering, what was I going to really talk about? Was I going to talk about the things that I had done some research on? So I think I'm going to do that. But two things, as I always say, is very important. One, you got to register to vote because that's the most important thing. And two, census. You got to get those census filled out. And as I shared with you the other day, don't think it's October, it's the end of September. So you better make sure that you fill out those census because it's very important to our community. And as always, I've always said that we got to get involved. I mean, it's very important for this election, but I think we got to get involved all the way down. And I'm just talking about down ballot. As I said before, we need to care who is the mayor, who's on city council. In some of those counties, we need to see who the district attorney is. We need to see who the sheriff is. And we need to hold those people very accountable. So there's a lot of lip service that we pay, but now we got to keep their feet to the fire because I think that's very important. And also, even though the election's coming up, some of you need to think about running in the spring for the primary. Some of you should probably run for mayor. Some of you should probably run for city council. Some of you should probably run for a lot of offices. So let's start gearing up. Let's not just let this election be it and then we don't do other kinds of things.
Right.
Now, let me just say this to you. I've been trying to figure out where is this country going and where are we going? You know, I was watching the other day Mississippi Burning, and I watched it, and as you know, it's an old film that's been coming on. And I said, if anybody would watch that, they don't understand why we have issues with the Confederate flag.
My.
Don't they understand when they saw the intimidation? Then I thought a little bit further, and then I saw another movie. I said, Jackie Robinson, and they don't know what we've been through and what we feel like and why we just feel it's time to step up. You know, I'm tired of hearing people say, I didn't know that, or I didn't understand that. So I decided today I'm going to put all of us on notice, including myself. We have an obligation to tell people our history. I keep telling everybody we have to be the ones that define our history. Remember, our history was not defined in those books in the schools that we attended. And a lot of us have experienced some of it, because I get tired of hearing people say that was a long time ago. No, it wasn't a long time ago, even though some of it's still going on now. So I'll just use me as an example, because I'm still alive, at least at this moment.
Sure.
You know, when I was a kid, my mom, fathers, I've always said, were from South Carolina. So my mom from Lakeview, South Carolina. So my mom and I got on a bus with my sister, and we went from Pittsburgh and we got to Washington. We were okay. Well, we're all right. But then when we got to Richmond, Virginia, to go to Durham and Raleigh, guess what? I had the experience of getting on the back of the bus. Yes, in my day and age. Also going there to see colored restrooms, white. You have to understand, those things have not changed a lot. Yes, some things have changed, but you want to know, and I think it's important for us to now go back and tell our experiences. Tell them to our friends, because they're all walking around saying, I just don't understand. I don't understand why everybody's mean. You know, we talk about, as I said, I keep saying all the time, we talk about the police, and I keep saying we ain't never said to defund the police that we didn't want police in our communities. And I've always said we ain't never told nobody that, you know, we didn't think everybody was important. All lives matter. And I keep saying that, and I keep saying it, and I keep saying it. But I understand how things get hijacked. For example, come on, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who are already going to vote for Donald Trump, those of you who are already going to vote for Biden and Harris, right now we know what we're really fighting for. We're fighting for the crumbs. The crumbs is going to decide who's going to win this election. That few, not a whole lot, not the 38% or that. It's going to be a very few. But in thinking about it, independents, whoever you are, I want you to think about some things. Let's think about even the other night at the Republican convention, and when Donald Trump spoke at the White House. Just think about that. He spoke at the White House. And you all clapped, and we thought that was good. Think about the slaves that helped build that White House. Think about it. All I want you to do is think about it. I don't want you to do nothing else but think about it. That's all I want you to do. Also, I want you to think about what is the issue when it becomes the media and the law enforcement response to the white vigilante, the shooter. It proves there's two Americas. There can't be two Americas. There can't be a black America and a white America. Can't be black justice and white justice. Justice is supposed to be for all. Remember? Supposed to be blind. We as African Americans and people of color have always experienced the two sides. We always have, and we've been telling you that. And some of you act like it's a new thing to you. You didn't know that. How can you take a 17-year-old walking through a crowd and nothing happens? Can you imagine if it had been me walking through that crowd with a gun? Well, I don't think so. I wouldn't be here talking to you today. And now people talking about, oh, well, maybe he had no right from one state to the other state and protecting other people's property when it wasn't his property. But yet you make it sound like, well, it's okay. It's all right. The president of the United States, some of the things he says, and I just want to say this to all my listening audience, some of us are trying to teach our kids, our grandkids, the right way to go and the right things to do. Do we need a president that we have now to say the kinds of things that he say? We should be ashamed of ourselves. We really should. And the other thing is, every time somebody gets shot, they go back and say, well, he had a record. Well, he had that. Y'all been manipulating so long that it becomes used. I already knew it. I mean, I was saying, wait, they're going to find something. You always find something. There's always an excuse. It's been an excuse for 400 years. When they were lynching people, it was an excuse. And a lot of you know it wasn't right. And I'm going to close on this before I bring my guest in, talk about athletic power. Everybody's upset that African Americans and all these NBA and all these teams are protesting, and they keep saying, well, your job is to play. Well, let me just say this to you. How many football players, let's go professional football players, do you see get in their cars and go home with their helmets on or with their jerseys on? No. How many of you are into baseball? How many of you see professional athletes wear their baseball caps in their uniforms home? Or hockey or whatever sport? You got to understand, they got to go home. All of them grew up in a community and they all were aware of it. You see, when you're on a team, they're together, and everybody's happy. But I just want some of you teammates understand something. They got to go home. They have sons, they have daughters just like you. So you don't know what it's like when you leave out of that locker room, you leave out of that stadium, and you get in your cars and you go left and they go right and they get pulled over. You don't know what they're experiencing because you've never walked into their shoes. You never walked into my shoes. You can't tell me what it's like to be black because you can't. Only I can tell you what it's like being black. I'm the one that can tell you when I have gone to department stores and they have followed me around. Have I ever been pulled over? Yes, I have. Have I ever been told, be very careful about what you say when you're pulled over? Absolutely. Did my father tell me that? Yes. Did I tell my nephews that? Yes. Do I tell kids that? Yes. Is that right? It shouldn't be that way, but we have to do that in order to protect our own. So I just hope people today think about what I've just said because it's very important. Because as I said, if you get shot 7 times in the back, they try to find out, well, you were a criminal. You should have did this or you should have did that. But that doesn't mean you should have gotten shot 7 times in the back. It doesn't mean that you should have gotten killed. So I just want you to think about those things today because I think those things are very important. I decided I'm going to just stop hollering and screaming about you need to vote. So I'm going to give you some reasons to vote. And if you can't comprehend these reasons to vote, then shame on you. You're not just voting for the president and the vice president. No. You're voting for who's going to be on the Supreme Court, who's going to do a lot of rulings that's going to affect you. You're voting for the next Secretary of Education, Housing, Attorney General. You're voting on who's going to have the majority in the House and the Senate. You saw how it worked. You had the President of the United States, but then you saw what the Senate said. Before he got sworn, they said he's not going to be as effective if we can help it. So it's important that we have those majorities. Also, you better understand you're voting for who's going to be the federal judges. Yep. And the other thing is, you better think about health care. And a lot of you who already had health care, but now you kind of found out that now that the way the pandemic has affected you, you don't have a job anymore, so now you need health care. And before you put your nose up to the Obamacare or Affordable Care, it's important because let me just tell you something. Down the road, it's going to come up and hit you. As my father used to tell me, just keep living. So if you just feel that you don't need to vote if your vote don't count, you don't care. It does. And because you're walking around healthy today, you might not be healthy tomorrow. So from all that, I'm just saying to you, I just think it's very important. But today I have a good program. Today we're going to talk about vote and voting and registering to vote. And I have a good friend of mine, Roxanne Sewell. She's from Talk Minority Action Group. So Roxanne Sewell, I want you to come on and we're going to have a good conversation here today. So how are you doing, Roxanne?
I'm doing okay, Richard. Thanks for asking. How are you? I see you're all fired up, huh?
Yes, I'm fired up. I have to be fired up because this election is so important. And I just can't sit back and not do anything. And as you and I both know, one day I'm up, I watch the TV, and then the next day I'm down when I watch the TV. So I just got to keep my foot on the pedal. But the first thing I like for you to do, I like for you to tell us who you are and tell us about your journey.
My journey. Wow. So Roxanne Sewell is my name. And I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Grew up in Homewood and graduated from Westinghouse High School. And you and I have that history together because that's how far back we go. So that's kind of nice. So once I started my adult journey, I didn't realize where it was going to take me and the different phases I would go through. I had to reinvent myself a couple times, and I started out working in the steel mill, in the steel industry, I should say. I wasn't in the mill itself. And as we all know, that industry declined. So what do? You reinvent yourself. And I've done that a couple times now. And I found that I have made my way to the political forum, which my father actually started me in when I was a little girl. It's funny how you don't realize and this is the thing about knowing your history. When you know your history, you know where you've come from. And I can see how I've landed where I am now because of the background of my family. And it's almost like it's osmosis when you have children and you look up or you look at your parents and say, wow, my mother used to do that. How am I doing that now? You never thought that it would be you, but it is you. So long story short, I started out in large business, worked for 40 years for other people, met and married Luther Sewell, who is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, started a business 58 years ago, and is now currently, Talk Magazine is still a 58-year-old publication that has been in Pennsylvania telling the Black story, and we continue to tell the Black story. An offshoot of Talk Magazine is TMAG, Talk Minority Action Group. We call it TMAG. And for some 20 years or so now, we've been working with TMAG across the state of Pennsylvania. We work in civic engagement. You can call it politics, but what we do is try to engage people and get them to understand their civil rights as United States citizens. People fight around the world to become United States citizens. And we have it here. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect. But it's the best democracy that we have right now. It's not perfect, as I said. So for me to look at the situation as you were talking about voting, vote, 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 I can't say it enough either, Richard. I look at the TV and I'm amazed at how many people don't understand the significance of their vote, how important their vote is, why you would ever think that your vote doesn't count. I don't understand that. So I want to help people understand how important they are and how important their vote is. The vote is, as someone said, and I wrote some notes down so I wouldn't forget them. The vote enables all other rights. And it starts with your freedom of speech, public schools, our healthcare system is so broken, like other things, that Obamacare was a gift to people that they don't even understand how hard it was to get. I think it was Roosevelt. Maybe you know better. Can you confirm that, Richard? Was it Roosevelt that started trying to get public health care for people? How many years was that? I mean, so for President Biden to make that happen for people was a momentous occasion. So we are back at looking at what does it mean? And you're absolutely right. It means that if you vote in a president, then you're looking at Supreme Court justices, you're looking at federal court justices, This current man in the White House has 180, I think, that he's now confirmed federal judges. Those are lifetime appointments, and they decide federal cases that are extremely critical for everybody's life. So if you look at people that say that it doesn't matter, it does matter. And when you look at local politics, your state representatives, your state senators, your state judges, your school board, you say, well, I don't like what's happening at my child's school. Well, did you vote for the people on the school board? There are so many occasions that's what we call civic engagement. Luther and I, that's what we call, through TMAG, civic engagement. We even developed a booklet, and I'm just going to flash it. We even developed a booklet, Citizenship and Responsibility. And inside this booklet, it gives a brief description for every local, every state, and every federal elected official and what their office actually means. What it means when you go or you call or you email your state senator or your congressional representative. What that means, what are their responsibilities? What are they liable to do for you? And what can you ask them? Why have you not done this? They have to be accountable. And we're the ones that hold them accountable, because if we don't like what they're doing, we can vote them out. So bringing all that up to present day, we have to understand the importance of knowing who you're voting for and what the rules are for this engagement. Because voter suppression is very real. Not being able to cast a vote it's unconstitutional is what it is. But as we have seen the last 3 years, there is no more respect for the Constitution currently. And when I hear people say, this is going to be the most critical vote of your life, it's because our democracy is at stake. I heard Donald Trump laugh at one of his gatherings last week. And he said, oh, they thought that 4 years is bad enough, and they're fighting like this for 4 years. What are they going to do for 12? And that's the part. That's what he really wants. That's what the people that work for him want. They're shooting for dictatorship. They're shooting for him to take over and claim his right to be in the White House and do whatever he wants to do because he's president. And that is the biggest part of this election as far as the president goes. That to me is so critical. But when you look at the Senate, as you said, if we don't elect our senators that will go in there and do a job, the Republicans just walk out of town, don't do their job. And I don't tell people who to vote for. What I ask people to do is look at what they're doing. Are they doing their job? Are they writing legislation? Legislation, I was explaining to someone, works both ways. Well, so-and-so voted for this and so-and-so voted for that. Well, if you know how legislation works, you and I, Richard, we set up, I write something, I write a bill, you write a bill. And I come to you and I say, Richard, let's work on my bill together. And you say, well, okay, let's work on my bill together. Okay. I may not like everything in your bill. You may not like everything in my bill. But unless we find a way to compromise, we're not going to get either bill passed. And then people wonder why there's 300, 400, 600 pages to one bill, because everybody has added on what they want for their constituency. So it all goes back to your vote. What you have is your vote. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I want to ask you, a couple questions I want to ask you. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is that one of the real issues is when people do research and when people say things, is that they look at the number of people that voted in that particular election.
Right.
And one of the things is come up is they keep saying, and this is why I think it's so important that the reason that TMAG is doing voter registration, voter education, and voter turnout is because they keep saying, as I said earlier, there's just a little small crumb that's going to turn who wins this election. And they keep saying that poor people, low income people, or don't really care. They don't care about the election because it don't mean anything to them. And so what do you do to try to get them to understand that the issues do affect them? Because the wealthy people vote. So what is your mechanism to tell folks that have been saying for a long time, well, my vote don't count? So how do you encourage them to register to vote?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we do to help people is get them to understand what their vote does. When you get your paycheck, they've already taken taxes from your paycheck before you get your paycheck. And then they decide what they're going to do with the money they took from your paycheck. So you got Joe Blow sitting in there deciding what's happening with you, whether you make a lot of money or a little bit of money. If somebody takes money from your check before you see it, you should have some say as to what happens with that money. Secondly, most recently, most people, and I talk to people that were previously elected officials that are considerably very smart when it comes to politics and the ins and outs of politics. And they either in the 2016 election, they didn't vote because they didn't like Hillary Clinton. And now, and I saw a young man on TV actually say that. He said he didn't vote because he didn't like Hillary, and now look where we're at. You can't expect things to change or be the change that you want to see. That was something that came out of Obama. Be the change you want to see unless you take an action. And an action requires you to do something. So you have to vote. When we ask people to go out and vote, it's not just mamby-pamby, just go vote. You have to get them to try to see a visual in their family or in their own life that why voting has affected them. You mentioned Obamacare. People talk about Obamacare like it's the end of the world, but then when you ask them, well, what insurance do you have? Oh, I have so-and-so insurance down at the clinic. So who pays for that? It's Obamacare. Whether they care to look at it or not, if you try to get people to see how their lives are directly affected by their vote, they start to understand. Some of them, you can go back and talk about things that have happened when you and I were coming up through the 50s and the 60s, and we were watching things happen. We were watching people like these young folks out in the street now, trying to make a difference. I can't even imagine right now when we were out in the street, it was just out in the street. Yeah, we had to deal with the police or whatever, but they're actually out there with a pandemic going on. All I want to do is try to find a way to help them. Can we take them food? Can we help them in some kind of way? So you have to look at what people are willing to do for other people to give them the rights that we have in this country. And voting is the biggest way to make a change. At the end of all of our events, I always tell people this is a call to action, because you must go out, you must talk to somebody, get somebody registered to vote, take somebody to the poll. You have to make a call to action, and you have to take action to affect change. And just in Pennsylvania alone, you know, TMAG, we do go across the state. We're based in Pittsburgh, but we go across the state with our events. The magazine, Talk Magazine, goes across the state. It tells the Black story. We have to tell our story. There are 14 Black mayors in Pennsylvania. 14. They didn't get there because people didn't vote. They got there because people voted. The only way we affect change, and there's some that are getting ready to run now that are hopefully going to win, because that's how you affect change. When you have mayors in cities, you want to be a business person? Can you get contracts? Can you grow your business? If you want to affect change, you have to have people that are in those jobs, whether they're mayors or state representatives, state senators, that are making opportunities and saying, well, okay, what about this company? Or part of the laws, getting the laws set on the books that, okay, minority business companies, you have to have X amount of percent, or you don't get the contract, period. Not if you can find them, it is when you find them. And if you can't find them, then you go to the directory that Richard Utley puts out and find somebody. You call Talk Magazine and find somebody. It's not that it can't be done, it can be done. But until we elect people that have our interests at heart, that take us seriously, that call to action, that step that you take, that change that you want to see, and there's enough of us to make that change happen. Hillary only lost by, I don't know, 40,000 votes, something like that across the state.
Yes.
That's nothing. So, I can only talk to people and try to take them to where their own family is hit and get them to see how that changes once they take that step. So we are pushing heavy. I'm sorry, go ahead. You have a question?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we're pushing heavily for mail-in voting.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be absentee anymore. It's mail-in voting. People don't have to have a reason. It's mail-in voting. And I know plenty of people that say that they don't trust the post office. And they said that at the primary. So now they're really upset about the post office. So we suggest to people that you take your ballot. You can take your ballot, you can fill it out, take it in and drop it off. It doesn't matter what county you're in. I'm in Allegheny County. You're in Dauphin County. You take it, you get on Dauphin County election office, Google it, find out the location, take your ballot, drop it off.
I was reading some of your literature, and you said, we'll talk about voter registration first. You said
yes.
The importance to set up registration booths, community block grants, street fairs, churches, and schools. And now they can make phone calls and things because of pandemic. So it's not as easy for them to go to those places. But you're saying you got to start now to register to vote. And I keep telling the people, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I said, you better verify it. If you're not sure where you vote, or you're not sure you're registered to vote, and if you ain't voted in 100 years, let me tell you, because they do take you off the rolls. And I hear people sometimes saying they don't want to be on the rolls for a lot of reasons. But this is so important. And that's why I said earlier to you, and I said to my audience, it's so important because a lot of times these people walk around saying it doesn't affect me. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was that I keep hearing this whole thing because of Black Lives Matter. That means a significant number of white voters won't vote for the Democrats because they think of the whole protest thing. So as you and I both know, they have a tendency to whitewash things. They change them up. You know, the Republicans blame the Democrats blame the Republicans, and they have a tendency that's remarkable to me. They paint a brush. And it's amazing. They've taken this rally like they took it when we were growing up, and they hijack it. And so all of a sudden, we forget to talk about the most important things. And so while we're talking about things don't affect us, one of the things you're saying, hey, you better register to vote and you better register now. And so, and check where the polling places are you right?
Oh yeah. So let me just walk through that a little bit for folks, because I think it's critical that people understand there are steps to the mail-in voting process. Initially at the primaries, people were saying, well, I thought you just mailed in and they mailed you a ballot. Well, they ended up doing that. But let's just look at this. And we say today, right now, you can go on your computer, votespa.com. That's VOTESPA.com. You go to votespa.com, you can register to vote right online. If you want to check your registration, check your registration. If you need to just check your address, check your address. And you don't even have to have not voted for 100 years. You may have not voted in the last 2 or 3 cycles. They may have purged you. So yes, if you have not voted in the last 2 or 3 cycles, because there is no off year, let me just say this for people too. There is no such thing as an off year election. Every year there's an election, and every year it's important. Some elections for state offices are every 2 years, some are every 4 years, some are every 6 years. The president is every 4 years. All you have to do is go on votespa.com. I don't care what county you're in, it'll give you a map. You can click on your state, Pennsylvania, and it'll list all the counties. All you have to do is click your county. It'll give you the location of the election office, the time of the election office, the phone number of the election office, and anything you need that is specific to your county and not to the state. You can find it there. If you want to register for voting, you can do it. If you want to change your address, you can do it. If you want to apply, this is the 2-step process. You have to apply for an application. The application, you can do it right online. I did mine. I did several other people's. As long as you can sit on the phone with somebody. If you don't want to be next to them because of COVID, sit on the phone with them. You can help them or you can do it. Apply online for the application for the ballot. Once you complete the application for the mail-in ballot, you wait. They will send you the ballot. In the meantime, on votespa.com, you can check and track your application. You can see that they received it. They should send you an email that they received it. You can always check if you don't receive it. If you still don't find it in the tracking system in a week or so, call them. They can tell you whether or not they received it, but you should receive an email saying they got it. You can do that right now, today. Once you get your ballot at your home, you fill that out. You make sure you fill in just like when you were in school, you filled in the test. It had the little circles. You fill in every circle that you need to fill in. If you're uncertain, you don't want to vote for somebody you don't know, that's fine. There's 2 envelopes. One is the security envelope. You fold your ballot, you put it in the security envelope and you seal it. You must seal it. Then you put it in the mailing envelope. They're 2 separate envelopes. You must seal the mailing envelope. And the mailing envelope you must sign. You absolutely must sign it. You sign the outside envelope because when it goes in and they start opening these things, all they do is they see your signature, they open it up. Your ballot is still inside in a secure envelope. They don't know how you voted. I don't care if they know you and your mother. They don't know how you voted. It's still in a secure envelope. So there's nothing that's not secure about this process. So those are the 2 steps. You must first apply for it, then you will get it. If you are, and I know this is we are in our, and everybody else can pick up their county and do the same thing. In Allegheny County, If you do that today, you can also call your election office and ask them to send you the application. You can get a paper application and mail it back in. Young people that don't deal with stamps, seniors that may not have stamps, in Allegheny County, we will be, TMAG works. We have people that work with us. If they run across people that need stamps, we will buy stamps. Now, I know at the end of the primary, they eventually sent out the ballots and they paid for the postage. That's great. But we cannot wait because there's so many fights going on in the court. The current administration is setting up so many lawsuits against Pennsylvania and what they're trying to do. We can't wait to determine if they're going to be able to get it passed to pay for the postage. So if you know somebody that needs help, help them. So those are the steps for the mail-in ballot. And that's all you need to do. It does not have to be an absentee ballot.
I think the other thing that you were saying, and I know because I saw it on TV and here, some people think that the ballot is automatically going to be sent to you. So you got to watch that. A lot of people are playing a lot of games here in this election, and we can't fall asleep at the switch. Mm-hmm. And that's why you were saying it's so important. And people don't really understand that. People are told a lot of things. And so if you have some concerns, and some of you who may not be computer literate, you can call on the telephone to your county election bureau. I called down there a couple of weeks ago because I had a couple other questions, and they were very polite. They were very nice, and they were willing to help. So I'm telling anybody, if you have some concerns and you're not sure, then just call. But the point I want to say, don't wait till the last minute. You can't wait to November 1st. Because I'm telling you, and no, the election is not going to be delayed or whatever. So you got to stay up on top of it. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is that, this big issue about voting. Let's talk about Pennsylvania here. And people don't understand about Pennsylvania, the electoral college, and the popular vote. They don't understand, or they should understand, in order to get the Pennsylvania electoral vote, you got to get the Pennsylvania popular vote. So you got to win Pennsylvania overall.
Exactly.
And so I keep hearing, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is that we understand the voting numbers in Pennsylvania. I do, and you do. So we know we have a large urban area in Philadelphia. We have a somewhat urban area in Pittsburgh, and we have some in Harrisburg. But it's very important that we get those number of votes out, because I keep telling people, and they don't understand it because I've done it, what we call in Pennsylvania the T. The T is basically central Pennsylvania. And it's rural, and it's very Republican, and they always get their numbers out. So we almost have to get an extra 80, 90,000 people out to vote in order to counter them. And if we don't do that, then shame on us.
Shame on us. Yes, sir. No, I totally agree, Richard. Totally. I mean, that's kind of a good segue here, because you're absolutely right in that in order for us to secure the popular vote, we have to overvote. We have to come out and vote like we did for President Obama. Part of the problem is it's the ticket, because we don't see Black faces on the tickets. Now, yes, we have Kamala Harris on the large ticket, on the overview. That's going to help bring out some people. But Republicans know the numbers just as well as you and I do. There's one way that they can do that is the Republicans only need to siphon off out of the urban areas that we populate and some of the surrounding areas to that, They only need to siphon off 14, 18% of the Black vote or the Democratic vote. And that crashes everything else around us. Because then with us not coming out to vote in the numbers that we should be, if you got them pulling off those little bit of numbers because of all this rigmarole that you keep hearing on the news and the propaganda. The propaganda is real, and it's real again. It was real in 2016, and it's real this time. Republicans, I keep hearing, are going after Black men. And this is the segue I was talking about. Black men, Luther showed me an article that he read, and I tried to get to it before today, but I didn't have a chance to. Apparently now they're trying to say there's some issue with Black men and Kamala Harris. So Black men are not voting. Black men are this, that, and the other. That's all propaganda. That is all an effort to cause confusion between us. We didn't allow confusion when Obama was voting because we were, I'm going to vote for him. Oh, I heard people say, well, are you saying that you're just voting for him because he's Black? I'm saying he's a crazy intelligent man that knows what he's doing. And yes, I'm voting for him. And all the years that Black people voted for white men that weren't half as smart as him, now there's a problem because he's crazy smart. And yes, we're going to vote for him. And we did. We have to understand that if we can do that, we can do whatever we want to do. We can put people into office that we want to put into office with our vote, the popular vote. In Pennsylvania, that popular vote, yes, you're right. The Electoral College gets all of Pennsylvania's electoral votes. Some states split them. And they say, well, okay, Richard, you won 70% of the election, the popular election, and Roxanne won 30 in Pennsylvania. So you'll get, if we have 10, you'll get 8 and she'll get 2, but not in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, you would get all 10, regardless of how the vote was split, as long as you win it. And people have to understand that. You can, if you don't come out and vote like we did for President Obama, anything can happen. Anything can happen. And if we have another 4 years of Republicans in the White House and in the Senate, Lindsey Graham has a young brother, Jamie Harrison, run against him. If you got $5, go online and find Jamie Harrison. Send him $5. If we can get rid of Lindsey Graham, if we could get rid of Mitch McConnell, even if we don't get rid of Trump, if we get rid of these people in the Senate that are running, there goes his support. They are so lawless, it's just, we can't depend on a slim margin. So yes, we need to come out absolutely strong.
The other thing is, because time flies sometimes, could you please tell people?
I'm sorry.
Could you please tell people how to reach you?
Oh yes, yes, please. Be glad to hear from people. The phone number here is 412-823-4007. It's 412-823-4007. The email address is very long, but it's the name. It's contact, the word contact, CONTACT, at talkminorityactiongroup.org. It's the name of the organization, talkminorityactiongroup.org. Well, you can send us emails there. You can go on our website. TMAG doesn't have a website yet. We're working on that, but Talk does, our magazine. It's talkmagazineonline.com. Talkmagazineonline.com. You can go on there. You can look at the magazine. There's a video on there of the last TMAG event we had July 25th. All of our contact information is in there. There's some information about myself and the founder, Luther Sewell. And, we would love to have you check out the website. We would love to have you join the TMAG family. Majority of the people are from Pennsylvania, but we do have some people outside of Pennsylvania that participate in what we do. But the outreach is based in Pennsylvania, but it's our TMAG family, and that's what it is. We help each other. If Richard has an issue, he needs some help over here. He knows people in Pittsburgh, but I'm just saying he can call. It's not. We are here to help uplift Black and brown people. We have our roundtable coming up that we do in Harrisburg. We're going to do it virtually this year, where we help support and work with and learn from our Hispanic and Latino brothers and sisters. And Norman Colon is running again for mayor of Lancaster. So, let's support each other. We can do this. If we have 14 Black mayors across Pennsylvania, and we can elect a Black president when we want to, we can elect whoever we want. That's how this is a country of laws. And the way to change the laws is through legislation. The way to change the legislation and policies are by the people that we elect. They have to be people that have our interests at heart. People that want to, I believe in capitalism, but I also believe that we are human beings first. And I don't know about any of you listening, and maybe you do or you don't. That's between you and whoever you serve. But I serve God. Luther serves God. This is part of our service, that we help people in this life while we can with what we have. And what we have is the ability to reach people. We're a communications company. We do marketing and communications to Black and minority people. And if we don't tell our story, if we don't help each other, if we don't make a way for people, our seniors, to vote, if they can't vote in their own building, Uber sets up programs with nonprofits that will drive people to the polls. So if you have seniors that don't want to fill out an application or whatever, we take laptops into senior buildings. You have to have a relationship with the building council, but it can be done. You go in there. If they don't have stamps, take them stamps, take them envelopes, help them. It's all about getting out this vote 100%. Richard, you're absolutely right. If we don't do this in mass numbers, the tea is coming out. It's clear that, they feel as though this is something that they do. It's something that it's their right. It's our right as well. We are citizens of this country. We built this country. And before I go, let me remind people about the census. You have to be counted. That's something that we didn't discuss tonight because we were doing voting. I get that. But the census, it tells them where the people are, how many people live in what neighborhoods, pretty much all the federal dollars that come into your state, and the state divides and sends down to the different cities, and the cities to the boroughs. It's the numbers. It's how many people are where and who. And so it all works together, and it's all critical. So that's why we do civic engagement. And we do this all year round, every year. It's not just election time, it's what we do. So we're always glad to hear from you. We're always glad to hear if you have questions. You can reach us again at 412-823-4007. And the email is contact@talkminorityactiongroup.org.
Roxanne, you said something, and I want you to go back over it again. You talked about people voting their vested interests. That's something that I think is so important, their interests. And it's been mind-boggling because people don't vote their interests. I tell people, if you don't vote your interest, then shame on you. So that's how I feel. So, and I heard you say it. Why do you think it's so important? They need to understand that.
Because that's what you live by. That's who you are. It's who your family is. It's who your grandparents are. And that's what brought us this far. It's our vested interest to do better for our children, to do better for our ancestors, I'm sorry, to do better because of our ancestors, what they put out there, what they put into it to get us where we are today. Although it's not perfect, as John Lewis, my hero, one of my heroes, John Lewis said, go back and walk in my shoes if you think things have not changed. Look where he was. Look how far he came. We put a Black man in the White House. So you have to understand that he may not have done everything you liked. He didn't do everything I liked, but would I vote for him again if I could? Yes, I sure would. You have to have people that will at least try to work with you and understand that you're not perfect. You need a way, and that's all we have to have is a way. If we have a level playing field, look at what Black people will do. Look at Hidden Figures. Who knew it was a Black woman that helped them put the man on the moon? We don't know what we've done. So how do we, our children can't look up and say, wow, you know, I can do that. I like math. But children tease me because I like math. But look what she did. And look at Chadwick that we just lost. Look at the children that he inspired to look at what they can do. Look at what you can do for your community. Look how you can serve your community. Knock on doors if you're strong enough, if you think you can do it, knock on doors. Get people to vote. If you can't do that, Luther always liked to say, people do things for people. We are asking people in our family, in our group, across the state, to call 5 people. Richard Utley, call 5 people you know. Make sure they're all registered, and then say to them, is everybody in your household registered? Is everybody in your family registered? Next time you go to church, check with the people at your church. 5 people, and then ask them to do 5 people. Then ask them to do 5 people. And the point is that, okay, next month we're going to go back and say, follow up on those 5 people that you called. And let's see if they need help. Make sure that they're not stuck on something, or if they have a question, or maybe they need a push. It's all of our best interest to make sure that we take care of each other. If we don't take care of each other, nobody's going to come and wave a magic wand. We see that. We know that. If we don't know that by now, then nothing is going to teach us that. So, did that answer your question?
I think that answered my question, because as I've always said, vested interest is very important, and people
Absolutely.
have to understand that. And as you said earlier, because of your magazine and stuff, and I've always told people we need to know our own history, and we have to define our own history, because what happens is, and I'll give you an example. For you always hear this saying, oh, people are lazy. Black people are lazy. They're lazy. But then you sit there and you go, how could they be lazy? And they were slaves, and they worked sun up to sun down and didn't get no break. Now that to me don't make no sense. But nobody don't articulate that, or nobody don't articulate when people say, oh, go back to Africa, or go back where, and I say, excuse me. That means everybody got to get on a ship and go somewhere. The only person that can stay here is the Native American. And the other thing, when I always talk about history, is that we need to know that. All these people say, I don't know this, and they don't understand. Remember, African Americans were really the only ones that were slaves in this country. And so next time when people, I'm just saying this, they need to watch Mississippi Burning again, and maybe they need to watch Jackie Robinson, and understand the plight that people went through. And as you said earlier, not only the plight, but that's why these athletes are protesting, because they got to go home. They don't wear football helmets. They don't wear baseball caps, and they forget about them. They see them on the field. They see them as an athlete, but they never see them as a human being. And like you said, if we don't look out for ourselves, then shame on us.
Shame on us.
And I think it's important, like as you said earlier, to register to vote. But not only register to vote, but they have to stay engaged. Even after this, they have to stay engaged.
Exactly.
And hopefully, you will do some political education where I've been promoting people to run for office because I think it's very important.
That's another thing, yes.
And we need to be smart about that. Don't run 10 of us and one of somebody else, and then you want to know why you don't win.
You don't win. Yeah.
Very sophisticated.
Yes. That's also something very critical. If I can mention that, yes. Find people to run. Young people, middle-aged. Young people's kind of hard because they have families. They're raising babies, they're raising children, maybe a little bit older or before they have children. Find people to run. And the other thing that young people can do, from what I hear young folks here in a lot of the conversations that we're having with several groups about what can we do? You can do the poll working. Take yourselves, get online, make a phone call, become a poll worker. Take the aging seniors out of the polling places. Put in these young folks that can do the job, stay there. And, here, if we find people that need it, which we have, we'll go buy some Kentucky Fried Chicken or some soup or something and take it to them so that they can stay on the poll. Stay on the poll. Poll workers, poll watchers, critical, so that we know what's going on. Do I have time to give these 2 phone numbers?
Yes.
Okay. So every election day is November 3rd from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Okay. Every election day, there are several ACLU type law firms across the country that will help in case of problems. Let me give these 2 phone numbers. Election protection helplines. They're election protection helplines. For English, the number is 866-687-8683. Number again, 866-687-8683. For Spanish, 888-839-8682. That's 888-839-8682. So you can make a difference. You can go to the polls, work the polls. You can get on the phone. You can sit right at home. You don't have to leave. Get on the phone, start calling people. You can help them register. You can check their registration for them. You can fill out the application with them and make sure it gets sent in to get their ballot, because it is a 2-step process. And the sooner you do it, the better it is. They are supposed to start mailing out ballots September 14th, I think it is, or 15th, in that date range. As soon as you get it, fill it out, mail it in. Or if you don't trust that, take it to your election office. And the other thing I wanted to mention, during the primary, they shut down the majority of the polling places because of COVID. During the general election on November 3rd, all polling places will be open. So you don't have to scurry to try to figure out where you're going. All polling places are going to be open. But mind you, take something to eat, take some water, take a folding chair if you can, because they will try and discourage you while you're standing in line. So be careful and mask your face. Yes, sir.
I agree with that. The other thing is that you got to check your county, because all counties are different. And I know for a fact today, Dauphin County is changing some of their polling places.
Oh, is that right? Well, I apologize. Check it out.
They're changing some, but that's all over, because you go, remember, there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Each county is different. So
Yeah.
check your county. Make sure that what you're doing is right with the county, because you can't afford no technicality. See, we got to stay on everything. And that's why it's so important. And I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your insight and your vision And please tell Brother Luther there, I've known him for a long time, and he's been a role model to me. And
Wonderful.
I want to say that. And
Wonderful.
I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to work with him, but I will continue to work with him. But one of the things you said, and I want to say this, I guess sometimes somebody asks you, what's your purpose? And I guess tonight you kind of helped me. So I guess part of my calling is to help people help themselves in terms of the political process. Not just today or tomorrow, but their political process overall. And I want people to understand, let's not try to make this racial. Let's not make it that. We're looking at this as looking out for the good of each other.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the way people have to look at it, because I always hear people say they want to make it racial. It's not racial. It's about you look out for your vested interest. And if I don't look out for my vested interest, then shame on me.
Absolutely. But I think that that's one of the things that people miss with Black Lives Matter, which is what you were saying. We can't allow people to take over our story. It's not to say that Black lives are the only lives that matter. All life matters. But watching what has happened, especially recently in the last few years with the police killings more than anything, how do we know that Black lives matter when it continues to happen with all of the extreme angst in the world right now? And looking at all these young folks out in the street, and they're still doing it. They're still doing it. That means to me, they have no conscience. They feel that they have a right to do it and that we don't matter. And I think that that's wherein lies the problem. It's not that we're saying that other lives don't matter. Other lives do matter. But it can't be this way. It just can't be.
I've said that all along. My parents never raised me and told me that all lives did not matter. They did.
Exactly.
The only issue I just have is that we have to step up and say, hey, our lives matter, because nobody in the past has been speaking about it.
Right.
So again, I want to thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Pleasure, and hope to have you again. And I'm glad. Don't forget, everybody. Don't forget TMAG, and they're across Pennsylvania. So It ain't just western part, middle part, or Philadelphia. We all have to pull together.
Yes.
Thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Richard. I'm glad you had me. Thank you. Take care.
Yep.
Thank you for joining the Richard Utley Show on the Voice 17104. We will be here on the Voice 17104 every first and third Tuesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Richard Utley, and we welcome your questions and/or comments.